Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Berry, and I am from UCLA, ACIO of Strategy, Planning, and Operations. I welcome you to our session and delighted that you've joined us to learn more about UCLA and the drive to change. A little over 3 years ago, our ABC and campus-wide PIO, Lucy Avatisian, joined us, and she was asked and tasked almost immediately by our EDC and provost, as well as our administrative vice chancellor, Michael Beck, to do a campus-wide assessment of our technology, services, capability, resources. And as part of that exercise, she built a Tiger team for approximately 8 weeks that came together and developed an assessment vehicle as well as a strategy for pulling together the documentation, as well as all the metrics that would be used to help her better understand the technology landscape here at UCLA. I'm delighted to be joined here today by Gabe Shamoun as well as Samantha Hamman, who will be able to share with you the journey that UCLA has been on. Gabe is one of our senior project managers at UCLA and has been instrumental in the stand-up of our enterprise program office. Most notably and most recently, he was responsible for the project management related to our transition from Moodle to Canvas, which is known as our Bruin Learn platform, as well as most recently, project management on our Ascend program, which is the implementation of our financial and procurement transformation. Joined with him is Samantha Hamman, also extremely instrumental as well as enthusiastic about all things Enterprise Program Management Office. Most notably, her recent accomplishments. She was instrumental in the transition of our classroom technology to hybrid learning. She also was involved in the pilot of our Zoom phone rollout across campus, and most recently, our financial aid transformation that is underway at UCLA. So with that, I'd like to invite Gabe Shamoun to our stage to walk you through our journey. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jennifer. You know, it's always difficult. It's always difficult to go up and speak after Jennifer because she's always so eloquent, and she's obviously a lot of fun to work with. Thank you to all of you here who are joining us, whether it be virtually or in person. As Jennifer mentioned, my name is Gabriel Shamoun, and I am a project manager within the Enterprise Program Management Office at UCLA. I specifically want to point that out because other than it being a lovely part of an introduction, the EPMO has really been a focal point for change, and change is really what this entire presentation is all about. For any of us who have been with any organization undergoing big change, we all know one common thing, and that is that change is super easy, right? Yeah. In reality, change is probably one of the most difficult things an organization and its people can go through. So in 2020, as our CIO, Lucy Avatisian, took the reins, IT services embarked on our own change journey with the Kotter model as our framework for change. For any of you change gurus out there who have seen this, this is probably a very familiar and welcome sight. For those of you who, like me, when I saw this for the first time, are like, what the heck is that? Don't sweat it at all. Over the course of this presentation, we'll elaborate on each step in this framework and share how we utilize each of them to accelerate and sustain change at UCLA.
Okay, so first impressions are crucial. Building trust and confidence in our ability to drive change is imperative. Our first step was to create a sense of urgency by showcasing our current state in full transparency alongside the light of our potential. By undergoing a third-party assessment of our IT environment, we were able to capture comprehensive conclusions and recommendations supported by over 1,000 existing artifacts, over 140 individual stakeholder interviews, and nearly 100 survey responses. Our IT environment was appraised holistically, looking at IT governance, finance, talent, technology, information security, and service management. This resulted in a robust roadmap. to improve and align our capabilities to the strategic needs of our students, faculty, researchers, and staff. This was a very important first step to inspire people to act with passion and purpose to achieve a bold, aspirational opportunity. By starting as deep and high stakes as we could, we were able to build momentum that excited people to pursue a compelling and clear vision of the future together.
All right, so the next step in the Kotter framework is to build a guiding coalition. What does that mean? A guiding coalition is a group of committed leaders who are responsible for guiding, coordinating, and communicating change. At UCLA, this took the form of university executive leadership, leadership within the administration, within finance, and also academic leadership. Having these groups come together was critical because we were able to put together a list of clear objectives to really cultivate trust and commitment at all levels throughout the university. First and foremost, these took the forms of things like leadership alignment to ensure that at all levels, leadership was not only bought in, but committed to the change that we were going to undergo. From an operational transparency perspective, this was really to provide visibility and accountability into the work going on, whether it be with regard to the change or even things like in-flight initiatives, which we'll get into later in the presentation. Customized support was to ensure that everyone at UCLA had a pleasant, dedicated, and really consistent support experience. Consistency is key. This is a big one at UCLA, and I know that we have a few colleagues here who will be able to relate to this, but local resource concerns were also key for us to understand, because what we really wanted to know was how the organization operated within our departments so that we could take that organizational experience and understand how to connect people and processes to create operational efficiencies. And then finally, fiscal responsibility, probably the cornerstone of any successful organization ever. Although if you look at maybe some of the balance sheets for some companies, people might think otherwise. This really highlighted the key importance and critical relationship between IT and finance to ensure investment and funding for not only critical infrastructure, but for the future of technology at UCLA.
All right, so strategy is a North Star to point to, a clear, simple goal that we can all get behind and work towards over the long term. Our third step was to form a strategic vision, to clarify how our future would be different from our past, and most importantly, to build buy-in. When we were developing our vision, our goal was to be responsive to campus, to support the mission of the university, and to maintain alignment from the top all the way down. We wanted to get to a point where our foundation was so solid that we became valued, innovative partners to our campus leadership, establishing a seat at the table only achieved by building deep relationships. From our assessment and socialization phase came our vision: strengthen the foundation and advance the mission. This formed the launchpad for the 26 tangible digital campus roadmap initiatives that would make our future a reality. The 26 initiatives are bucketed into 6 priority areas: enterprise infrastructure solutions, enterprise information security, application modernization, customer experience, academic technology, and of course, data and analytics. Combined, this portfolio represents the first significant investment in core applications and infrastructure in 4 decades. 4 decades. Now, delivery is nearly as important as the development, as Gabe and I found when we were putting together this presentation. And we thoughtfully announced the digital campus using 3 key vehicles. Our broadest messaging went out to all campus employees in the form of a Bruin post. And this was co-signed by executive, academic, administrative, and IT leaders, showing a united front in our bold new direction. In tandem, we launched the CIO website. This offered an opportunity to stay connected, as well as share our success stories. Now, collaboration is the core of UCLA's character, and the digital campus roadmap was developed through inclusive dialogue. In spirit, we wanted to personally announce the digital campus to our more than 120 key stakeholders that co-created it, that really helped shape it. So we dedicated time in our regularly scheduled governance and advisory meetings to present our plan in detail. This approach afforded us the opportunity to share the right message with the right people at the right time.
All right, so now with the strategic vision in place, we sought to enlist a volunteer army. In some ways, I would probably say that this is one of the most self-explanatory pieces of the Kotter model. But the key takeaway here was for us at UCLA understanding that large-scale change could really only be successful for us if individuals wanted to contribute and if there was a collective aligned around a common goal. With the complexity of our landscape, we believe that collaboration and partnership across departments would really be the key to our success in this change journey. So cue the IT strategic partners. What we really sought out here was to ensure that everybody not only had a voice, but had a seat at the table. So across administrative and shared IT, enterprise IT, and academic IT, we formed this critical group. Sorry, a lot going on here. So the role of this group was to really understand and partner with the CIO to ensure business continuity, to strengthen communications, and then to also facilitate support around IT governance for the overall IT strategy and in-flight initiatives. This group coming together was super important, and their regular participation with our leadership team has really been a critical part of the overall change journey. And frankly, this group was, is, and will continue to be the key to our change strategy at UCLA.
I have a question. Yeah. What's the difference between enterprise and shared?
We will answer that at the end of this, but thank you for the great question.
All right. As leaders, removing barriers is inherent. Before we began executing on the digital campus roadmap, we leveraged the ProSci triangle, a change management model establishing critical elements of success: leadership and sponsorship, project management, and change management. This model not only helped us to organize our efforts, but also helped us to assess our health along the change journey. With success at the center, each of the equal sides work together, conveying uniform importance and emphasizing the need for collaboration and cooperation. We will go through each of these and show you our application in the next few slides. Rooted in our drive for change is a commitment to visibility and voice. Our steadfast dedication even permeates through our IT governance process, an inclusive approach to developing and implementing technology strategy, policy, and solutions. The core of our IT governance is the Executive IT Governance Board, the IT Steering Committee, and 5 domain-specific committees that collectively work to guide the vision, direction, and priorities of campus technology. These decision-making bodies are complemented by advisory and alignment groups that inform and support technology-related projects and, of course, initiatives. While these groups vary in structure, function, and tenure, I want to call special attention back to our IT strategic partners. These 32 members provide representation from across campus. They also provide a critical voice in our support network. On the next slide, we'll move on to a topic that's very near and dear to us: project management. Much of this part of our journey was building the bridge as we crossed it, a phrase that we use often. Although we didn't have formal funding, we knew we needed to formalize our program in an integrated fashion, focused on people, process, and tools. We started by outlining our strategy, defining our standards, constructing our processes, and of course, standardizing our tools. And once all of that was defined, we transitioned all of our active programs into the new ways of working. A common theme here in our development was the need to formulaically measure health, status, and of course, our progress. Because if you can't measure it, then you can't manage it. We committed to single sources of truth, to automation, and my favorite, templates. These helped us to ensure that we were comparing apples to apples across our project portfolio, no matter the program size, or of course, the project managers. We will show you some of these templates in just a bit. Now, while a bulk of our time was spent at the project level in our maturity curve, we were intentionally going slow to go fast. We were thorough in our foundation, pulling the vast experiences of our program directors and project managers to build a portfolio management strategy that would instill credibility and, of course, confidence in our system. On the next slide, we'll look at the easiest of them all, change management. Now, can I get a quick raise of hands of the people in the room who love change? Not the people who like making change, the people who like experiencing it. Yeah, one person. There is nothing more constant in this life than change. You would think that we would embrace it wholeheartedly by now. But as you can see, most people, a majority of us, really are uncomfortable with it. The irony is that you must embrace that discomfort to grow. We knew this hard truth would be the most difficult barrier to overcome. So we position change management as a valued equivalent, a true partner to project management. And we also created a mirrored strategy focused on people, processes, and tools. No matter the initiative, change is a reality that must be faced and controlled. Our strategy, as pictured here, considers the needs of the entire project lifecycle. It shows that it takes more than just communications and training to guide individuals into an improved future state. It takes change leaders with flexibility, with responsiveness, and of course, with a ready toolkit to help people find acceptance at the end of the road. Now, it is important to note that each one of these boxes has an archive of materials, quick reference guides, good examples, and of course, templates that these change leaders can pull from. Through these three disciplines, leadership and sponsorship, project management, and of course, change management, we've been able to provide our teams with a clear way to generate impact quickly.
All right. So first of all, I love working with you. It's so much fun. With us having now just recapping through this as we get to this critical juncture in the Kotter model, now that we have created a sense of urgency, built a guiding coalition, formed a strategic vision, enlisted a volunteer army, and then most recently removed barriers. Does anybody want to guess what comes next? And I'll give you a hint. It is not exactly what is written at the top of that slide. Anyone? No? You got to prove that it works, right? What's kind of funny is I think we can all probably relate to the fact that we could build fancy PowerPoints like this one or strategize till we're blue in the face. But at the end of the day, eventually the rubber has to meet the road. So at UCLA, we sought to implement two key initiatives. The first of these, which is up here, is very near and dear to my heart. Burn Learn. This was, as Jennifer mentioned, one of the programs that I was very intimately involved with. This was the campus-wide rollout of the Canvas learning management system to our stakeholders at UCLA. Over the course of 18 months, with a lot of short-term wins baked in, courtesy of our phased implementation plan, and working with students, faculty, staff, and leaders from across campus, we were able to support over 50,000 stakeholders in this transition off of our legacy LMS. On top of that, this introduced a new and modern UI, enhanced mobile application experience for our end users, and new ways for facilitators to manage content term over term in a UI and platform that was built for evolution. Speaking of evolution, which pairs very well with change, as the team continues into the future and in its current steady state support model, they're continuing to evaluate, analyze, and implement new tools that will allow that platform to evolve with UCLA well into the future. Going into the next project, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, one back. There we go. Salesforce Marketing Cloud, I like to refer to this implementation as being small but mighty. It didn't take a massive army, 150 person project to roll out, but it was very, very apparent on an ongoing basis how much impact this had on our day-to-day communications and overall strategy. This really revolutionized the way that we communicate internally and externally with stakeholders on the academic side, as well as the IT side. With our end user experience in mind, we really standardized and integrated some key accessibility standards into our communication strategy. And with that, we also were able to remove a lot of inefficiencies in our communication strategy. And most importantly, which I think we can all relate to, we removed a lot of those mailing list nightmares that we've all had to manage in the past. What's really important about this step in the framework is that if you're familiar with the psychology around Scrum project management, is anybody here familiar? Can I get a show of hands with Agile or Scrum project management? Awesome. You'll all know a common theme here, which is that generating short-term wins inspires your team and really re-energizes your team. So in thinking about these two implementations, the team and our partners, this really re-energized us, showed us that the change was viable, and showed us that this change journey was worth it as we moved forward into the future.
Okay, now how can you guarantee success? You can guarantee success in difficult change by not skipping any of the steps or the lessons learned. What we heard throughout our time planning, organizing, and implementing the digital campus roadmap transformation is that our campus wanted to be informed. Whether they read their email or not is still up for debate. While our short-term wins help to boost confidence in our abilities, in order to sustain that acceleration, we developed and implemented systematic managing, tracking, and reporting templates in Smart Sheets. At the most granular level, we developed a project plan, a status log, and a RAID log standing for risks, action items, issues, and decisions. We package these together with standardized reports and dashboards and drop them into new workspaces as new projects are kicked off. This has really helped us to empower our teams to hit the ground running with very little effort on my part. Now, each of these templates roll up into project level status reports, program level status reports, and of course, our executive portfolio dashboard, which is shared out to the top 500 leaders on campus each month in a personal message from our CIO. We've been entrusted with precious campus resources, and we feel a deep responsibility to maintain transparency with the people who we need to report out to. In our monthly message, this shows our campus our commitment to that transparency. Now, this month marks our 1-year anniversary of the CIO message. And in the last 12 months, our campus leaders have appreciated our consistency and our openness so much so that other campus units and other UCs are adopting these standards and these templates as well. This has helped to anchor our credibility and really compound our impact.
All right, so now we're getting to the last part of the Kotter model. And this part of the framework is called instituting change. I was thinking about what that actually meant for me, and instituting change seemed like such a funny way to talk about it. So I was like, I think this is actually about really making the change stick. At the end of the day, you can go through this entire change journey, but what is it all for if you don't have something that lasts with your organization and can help the organization evolve into the future? Where we at UCLA thought that this started was with our operating model. The way that we did this was we actually bucketed it across 6 different sections. And starting with IT governance, we created a clear and comprehensive IT governance model to make decisions around shared IT investments, standards, and priorities. From the perspective of program and change management, we developed a standardized model with clear oversight and accountability over enterprise initiatives based on leading practices and partnership with our stakeholders. For IT finance, we created a funding model for core services supporting greater stewardship over IT funds while also encouraging effective financial planning with streamlined procurement and vendor management process. As we move into enterprise architecture, I think we skipped this slide. Yeah. As we move into enterprise architecture, our goal is to provide fundamental technology and process structure for an IT strategy while focusing on emerging practices and things like UX and design thinking. For our IT workforce, our goal is to provide comprehensive training programs to provide them with the skills that they need to adapt and be successful in an ever-changing tech environment, while also rethinking the overall employee journey. Lastly, IT service management. Our goal here is to provide an enhanced service management platform with a comprehensive service catalog and metrics to enable enhanced customer experience. All right, so for anybody virtually from ITS or anybody here from ITS at UCLA, this will probably be a very familiar site for Reimagine IT. For those of you from other campuses or other organizations, this is really the next step in changing or instituting change in rethinking IT talent. What we were looking for here was to create clearer career pathways, roles and responsibilities, and improved professional development opportunities for all of our people in the department. The first of these was to reimagine culture. In May of last year, we embarked on our change journey at UCLA in culture, and we leveraged the Barrett Culture Assessment as a part of this whole process to learn about our current culture and our desired culture. During that time, we operationalized our Change Champion Network, who supported the identification of our values and specific behaviors to help us build our future desired culture. We'll get a bit more into culture on the next slide, but definitely wanted to start there. From an EDI standpoint, we are and will continue to provide additional training opportunities and resources to meet the needs of our staff in this ever-changing environment. And then from an org design, talent management, and ITS Academy, these all loop pretty well together. But starting with org design, we're currently in the process at UCLA of realigning our services and capabilities, and are refining our approach based on partnership and feedback from our team. In thinking about talent management, this is about really transforming the overall employee journey within ITS, developing clear career paths, modernizing position descriptions, and conducting comp analysis, but most importantly, overall talent development. Finally, thinking about ITS Academy, for those of you guys who are familiar with Pluralsight, this is our version of how we rethink our overall training strategy at UCLA. But this is really our focused mission to provide staff with enhanced professional development opportunities. And our team has really taken the time to develop out multiple learning tracks for all the different career tracks that exist within our department to support the varying and flexible nature of the roles that exist there, while also allowing people the flexibility to peruse other training that is available on the platform there, as well as within other platforms that we support. Now we get to the final piece of this, which is ITS culture, as I alluded to on the last slide. When Samantha and I were talking about this, we were going back and forth, like, how do you actually define culture? Because it's so personal to each organization and each person within an organization. And what we really came up with was, this is how you show up to work every day. This is how you work with your colleagues and how you think about innovation within your department. With Reimagine IT, we needed to develop a vision for our future culture long before we made any organizational design changes. And we needed these to align with our overall university mission values. You see on the right there in yellow, the True Bruin values. With the help of our change champions, we developed a list of ITS core values, and these are innovation, employee fulfillment, and teamwork. And these are really to help guide our teams in decision-making, problem solving, and relationship building to pair with our true Bruin values. This was, is, and will be the future of ITS culture at UCLA.
All right. All projects end, thankfully. Even when it's hard to cut the cord, closing is the last phase in a successful implementation. Transitioning from that implementation phase into sustainment and taking a moment to look back at your results. We wanted to close the loop today by showing you what we've been able to quantifiably achieve. From the top, we performed one assessment that resulted in a recommendation. As we built out our guiding coalition, we hosted over 30 meetings with over 240 participants from research, academic, and administrative groups. Those discussions led to 26 digital campus roadmap initiatives and 32 strategic partners to help advise us. To help knock down those barriers, we developed one change management strategy. And to help build some momentum, we completed 2 short-term wins, one academic and one administrative. This helped to build confidence in our ability to take on that larger portfolio of work. We landed on one portfolio management strategy to accelerate change forward and one operating model for one ITS. Now, if you take anything away from what we've been talking about today, for UCLA and our Drive for Change, we have 3 pillars. We have relationship management that works with the campus units, an operations engine that keeps the lights on, and an innovation barrier that battles on the bleeding edge with people, our people, at the heart of it all. Thank you. So while we're here for questions, if we don't have enough time to get to your questions today, please do take down our emails. We'd be happy to get to them later. We're just happy that at least one person showed up in the room today. So thank you for coming. And would anybody like to kick us off?
I think you had a question, right?
It was back on that slide. When you were talking about the different IT groups, you had like academic IT. I think there was something called like a shared IT.
Enterprise.
And enterprise IT. It was just kind of, I know the difference between academic and maybe enterprise IT, but the shared IT, could you describe maybe what that structure is?
Yeah, so there are enterprise supported programs that we have, things like Bruin Learn, which is our campus learning management system. And then there are other initiatives that exist on campus, which have central support, but are also shared with other departments around the university. So when there is the shared breakdown of, let's say, roles and responsibilities and administrative support or end user support, that is beyond exactly how we go through funding at the enterprise level. So Bruin Learn is fully funded and managed by the IT services central team with some distributed support around. But when it gets deeper ingrained into funding and how we work with those departments and route service tickets and how we support those end users, that's where it gets into the more administrative shared IT space.
Anybody else have a question?
We have an online question. This was clearly a large effort. I believe I saw 18-month campaign. Did UCLA ITS have other or competing projects in flight during the planning and implementation of this effort? Or was it agreed upon that this was your priority effort and resources were hired accordingly?
We wish. So there was some pre-existing projects that we inherited. We went through a really intense prioritization exercise where we looked at all of the existing projects that we inherited, even before we were looking at funding for the digital campus. But no, this was not our only priority. And there was a lot of hard work to be able to balance, anything that we inherited and everything that was coming and everything that we had to do in order to prepare for that coming. So thank you there.
And that's still going on.
And it's still going on. Yes. Did you have a question?
I did. Can you go back to the culture slide?
Sure.
Just real quick.
Mhm.
I see there's numbers underneath each one, and I was wondering, is that like a order of priority, or what was the numbering about there?
No, this is just showing there are the 3 ITS core values and then the 5 true Bruin values.
Oh, okay.
The numbers associated with them don't have any indication of priority or meaning it's just. the-
Okay, yeah, I was wondering about that. That was my first question. My second question is, I know you kind of touched upon there was a champion for culture, and I was just wondering, were there specific initiatives and projects just focused on how to change the culture within the organization, or was there, or how did that go about? How'd that evolve?
So it was one initiative, and there were many champions. I see a couple in the room here with me. But our main goal was to develop these priorities, develop these values, develop some statements around those values that we could really embody in our work every day. And, these are going to be used even in our performance evaluations moving forward. So that way they're being really instilled in the behaviors that we want to exhibit every day. Culture is the water that we live in. It surrounds us and everybody else around us. And, one drop does make a ripple. So it was a really important initiative for us to do.
We have another virtual.
Another virtual question. Can you elaborate a little more on your relationship management? And is that role, if so, how big is the team and who do they all work with?
So we do have change management leaders. Relationship management is a pillar, but there are different components to that. So we do have a tiny but mighty team, and it really depends on the type of change that is being implemented. So for example, we have a governance lead who works with all of our IT governance advisory and alignment groups. We have folks that have specific roles on our program. So they're very program based and they can move from program to program as needed. So it really depends. But overall, I believe that we have about 260 plus or minus on any given program, with 131 on one program specifically. So, okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Thanks. Were there portions or phases of this project that were more burdensome or a heavier lift than you were expecting? And how did you navigate around them?
In the change journey or in one specific project that we discussed?
Either, yeah, I'm thinking on one specific project specifically.
Oh, wow. I think every project is different, so it's difficult to say how like a future project will be, but just thinking about the few projects that we discussed, there are always challenges when you're working with so many different people with competing priorities. And in the environment that we have, that each department has very specific needs that we needed to support and address. And it becomes in a lot of cases, like every project, or even like the last question about how many projects are going on. It's about prioritizing specific pieces, understanding what the cost benefit analysis of making one decision versus another decision will be. And then also being, most importantly, communicative about how you're going to enact these changes. And if in the case of the programs that we discussed, having a deferred log where in the future, you're also communicating with the folks that are requesting specific changes to make sure that these needs are being addressed on an ongoing basis. That answer your question?
Definitely. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? This is great.
Okay.
Oh.
Yes.
You mentioned you sent out a lot of messages. You also mentioned again that you don't know if reading email. How does that work?
Well, thankfully, we do have dedicated time in regularly scheduled governance and advisory and alignment meetings, either on a quarterly basis or on a monthly basis. We have that monthly message that goes out to the top 500 leaders around campus. And we know that those leaders also help to disseminate those messages to their teams. So it's been really important for us to communicate using different avenues and to reinforce those messages where we can, because it takes 3 to 7 times to hear something for it to stick. So we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to get these folks the information that they need. Yes.
This is maybe a little bit of down in the weeds of the actual effort itself. So I was wondering if you could talk for a minute about the roles of some of your different governance groups, particularly your top 2, in regards to the strategy that was developed. Do they, in terms of both kind of the approval of that process and
Yeah.
strategy that's developed, maybe on the
So
ongoing
the
basis?
IT executive governance group versus the IT steering committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jennifer is going to be able to speak to this.
Sure, not a problem. Thank you so much for the question. So if we could just back up relative to the initial roadmap that was developed. As mentioned, once we had the initial assessment, there was a number of meetings that took place with our 32 units across campus to initially come up with the proposed roadmap for the overall 4-year digital campus roadmap. At that point in time, we went through and calendarized each of those initiatives and then went through and developed the governance strategy that was presented earlier. Your executive IT board is primarily responsible for the kickoff, if you will, of each initiative. So they have to get the approval as well as the funding. So with every new initiative that is going to be launched, most recent one was unification of our networks across campus. UCLA currently has 32 networks across campus, and Lucy has put forth a proposal to unify those all into one. In order to do so, we have to put together a business case. It's put in front of our executive IT board with the proposed funding, and then there are 8 leaders that then vote one way or another. And we look for a unanimous vote across all 8 leaders, and you just continually meet with them until you address all their questions. The role of the steering committee is to vet the business case initially, to basically surface any key gaps or issues that they may see in it before it gets up to that executive IT board. And they also provide a recommendation as to whether or not they too support those initiatives. Does that help? Okay, great. Thank you.
Another online question. What were your biggest obstacles?
Ooh, this is actually a really good question. Biggest obstacles in the change journey, the most obvious one is that change is super difficult, right? When it came to, like, if you just think about the prioritization of projects as one, there's always going to be a level of commitment that you provide in one way or another that is going to make one group happy, one group perhaps a little bit upset. So from a project perspective, you always have to contend with those issues and concerns. From a change strategy perspective, and just thinking about change being as difficult as it is, we have people within our organization who have been there for decades. And thinking about IT services specifically, there are new ways of working and new SaaS solutions, other things that we are implementing on an ongoing basis that make it perhaps exceedingly difficult for some people to enjoy or accept change. And I would say that the critical part for that, as well as the relationship, is again, making sure that you are working with everybody hand in hand to understand what their specific concerns are. Our leadership team has been exceedingly supportive in understanding and taking feedback from everybody across the department to understand exactly what those concerns are, making sure to address them individually or across buckets if they work that way. So again, it's difficult, but the way that you do it is by going together hand in hand, making sure that everybody is having their voice heard and that their feedback is being incorporated into the solution.
All right.
How do you balance that collaborative, consensus-driven approach with like speed and velocity? Not that we have that challenge in our campus at all, but
I think communicating the need, putting emphasis on how important this work is and because we were able to work with them so early on in the process, they have heard this a few times. They know how important it is. And, even though we even have competing priorities within just ITS and our existing projects, they do too within their own organizations. So having that leadership support to help drive home the importance of this work has been very helpful.
Communication and deadlines, but making the deadlines reasonable enough and communicating them out frequently enough to where, frankly, people have the opportunity, because I know we're all busy and we all have our own projects that we're supporting, but making sure that everybody has an opportunity to actually provide that feedback.
True.
And if I could just give one plug, she's not able to be here with us today, but we have an incredibly collaborative CIO that, quite honestly, she is the type of individual that you bring everyone along with you in the journey. So it's a no surprise environment, if you will. So working very, very early on with stakeholders, really identifying where we feel like there's going to be any kind of issues, if you will, and identifying what are those concerns and how do we quickly bridge those gaps so that you can work at pace. So great question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.